The stopper. The oldest center-back type in football is also, in the modern game, the most limited. The stopper was built for a simpler era, aggressive, dominant in the air, physical, and entirely focused on one task: stop the attack before it develops. No waiting for danger to arrive, no reading of the game required, just immediate, uncompromising intervention the moment the ball enters the defensive zone. For decades, that was enough. The best stoppers of their generation were celebrated precisely because nothing got past them. The position produced champions. Then the game changed around it. Press a stopper with the ball at their feet and the weakness appears instantly. They go long, they surrender possession, and they give the opposition exactly what a high press is designed to extract. Nemanja Vidic at Manchester United was the definitive modern stopper. Ferocious, dominant, and one of the finest pure defenders of his generation. Sir Alex Ferguson won titles with him because he was smart enough to build a system that protected Vidic's weakness rather than expose it. Take Vidic out of Ferguson's specific structure and put him in a team that builds from the back, and the greatest stopper of his era becomes a liability. The type is not obsolete, it just needs the right system around it. The ball-playing center back. Why does a center back need to pass like a midfielder? The question sounds wrong. Defenders defend, midfielders distribute. The roles are separate. But ask it to a pressing coach and the answer comes back immediately. Because when a team presses high, the first player they target is the center back with the ball. If that center back cannot receive under pressure, identify the right option, and play through the press calmly, the press works every time. The ball-playing center back exists not as a luxury, but as the specific answer to the specific problem that high-pressing football created. Virgil van Dijk at Liverpool under Klopp is the position's defining modern expression. Before his arrival in January 2018, Liverpool went long under pressure. The center backs could not be trusted to play through a press. After Van Dijk, they played through everything. That single signing did not just improve Liverpool's defense, it changed their entire tactical identity, from a team that absorbed pressure to a team that dismantled it from the back. The most in-demand center-back type in modern football is not the best tackler or the best header. It is the defender who can make the opposition's most aggressive tactical effort feel like wasted energy. The sweeper. The sweeper's job was deceptively simple. Sit behind the defensive line and clean up anything that got through. No specific opponent to mark, no zone to patrol, just cover the spaces the other defenders left behind, deal with the through balls that split the line, and give the players in front of them the confidence to defend higher and more aggressively. If you know someone is behind you, you take risks you would never take alone. The sweeper was that someone, the last outfield line before the goalkeeper, and the reason Italian defensive football of the Catenaccio era was so suffocatingly difficult to break down. The role has largely disappeared, as zonal marking replaced man marking and the sweeper keeper absorbed the sweeper's most critical function, the interception behind the defensive line. But the sweeper's core skill, reading danger before it materializes and positioning to cover it before it arrives, did not disappear with the role. It transferred into how every modern defender is coached to think. The sweeper is gone. The sweeper's intelligence is now a basic requirement for every defender at every level. The libero. AC Milan conceded 14 goals in the entire 1993-94 Serie A season. One of the most technically demanding defensive systems ever implemented at club level, the offside trap, orchestrated in real time from the back line across 34 matches against the best strikers in the world. Franco Baresi was at the center of every decision that produced that record. He was the libero, Italian for the free one. While every other defender tracked a specific opponent, Baresi tracked no one. He roamed freely behind the defensive line, reading the game, covering mistakes, initiating attacks, dictating tempo. A defender with the complete freedom of a midfielder and the intelligence to know exactly when to use it. What separated the libero from the sweeper was not the depth of the position, but the ambition of it. A sweeper covers and stays. A libero covers and then advances, driving into midfield, playing key passes, arriving in positions no center back had previously occupied as a matter of course. The role demanded the complete package, which is why the greatest liberos are remembered as some of the most complete players the game produced. The position has since been absorbed entirely by zonal systems on one side, by the sweeper keeper on the other. Baresi's Milan remains its definitive expression, and that 14-goal record remains its most eloquent argument. The aggressive man marker. At the 1982 World Cup, Diego Maradona, the most gifted player of his generation, the man who would win the tournament 4 years later almost single-handedly, was almost entirely removed from the competition, not by a tactical system, not by a back four, by one man, Claudio Gentile, who followed Maradona everywhere across every match they played, made his life physically uncomfortable at every moment, and produced one of the most devastatingly effective individual defensive performances in the history of the sport. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't always legal, but it worked completely. That is the aggressive man marker, a center back built around one specific job, assigned to one specific opponent, committed to that assignment for 90 minutes, regardless of where it takes them. The man marker follows their target into midfield, out to the flanks, deep into their own half. Wherever the attacker goes, the marker is already there. The risk is structural. Leave your defensive zone to follow one player, and you've created space for someone else to exploit. The reward is total. Neutralize the opposition's most dangerous player, and you've changed the match more completely than any tactical adjustment could. Diego Simeone has built his entire managerial identity around this principle, understanding that eliminating one key player is sometimes the most efficient path to a result. His Atletico Madrid sides have beaten teams with far greater technical quality because their man markers made the opposition's best player a passenger. The modern hybrid center back. Why is the rarest center back type also the most demanded? The modern hybrid, physically dominant enough to stop, technically comfortable enough to build, positionally intelligent enough to read the game proactively, is genuinely extraordinary to find because it requires elite quality across 3 dimensions that have historically been developed separately. Coaching a stopper does not produce a ball player. Coaching a ball player does not produce a stopper. The hybrid requires both simultaneously, which means the development pathway that creates one is vanishingly narrow, and the players who emerge from it command the highest fees in world football. Ruben Dias at Manchester City under Guardiola is the closest thing the current game has to the complete hybrid. His defensive solidity gives City's high defensive line the security it needs to function. His composure on the ball allows him to participate in the positional build-up patterns Guardiola's system demands. His reading of the game makes him effective in every phase. Guardiola, who has worked with some of the finest defenders in the history of the sport, described Diaz's arrival at City as transformative in the same terms he used for Van Dijk's arrival at Liverpool. 2 different clubs, 2 different systems, the same type of player. The most difficult center back to find is the one every elite coach is looking for. The auxiliary fullback. At some point during a Manchester City build-up phase, a center-back quietly becomes a fullback. No substitution, no position change announced, no tactical board. The center-back simply steps sideways into the fullback corridor, the actual fullback pushes into midfield, and now City have a different shape than the one they started with, a shape the opposition prepared for in the week before the match but are no longer playing against. This is the auxiliary fullback, the most modern and least understood center-back type on this list, a role so new that most casual fans watching Guardiola's teams have never noticed it happening even as it changes the structure of the match in front of them. John Stones became the most visible example of this role at City, a nominally central defender who regularly occupied midfield and fullback positions during build-up phases, functioning as an additional ball carrier and passing option in areas the opposition's pressing triggers had not been designed to cover. It requires a specific combination: technical comfort in wide areas, the positional intelligence to know when to step out and when to stay central, and complete familiarity with a system precise enough that stepping into the wrong position at the wrong moment collapses the structure rather than improving it. Most center backs can't do it. The ones who can make the most sophisticated systems in football function. The center-back midfielder, the Beckenbauer type. Franz Beckenbauer won the World Cup as a player in 1974. Then he won it again as a manager in 1990. In between those 2 tournaments, he changed the center-back position so completely that a new word had to be invented to describe what he was doing. He was not a defender in the traditional sense. He defended when defending was required, then carried the ball forward with the authority and vision of a creative midfielder the moment his team won possession. Not occasionally, not as a calculated gamble, as a deliberate central feature of his team's attacking strategy. He arrived in positions no defender in history had previously occupied as a matter of course, and the game did not have the vocabulary to explain him. The Beckenbauer type has never been replicated at the same level. The complete center-back midfielder, defending with the presence of a stopper and attacking with the range of a playmaker simultaneously across a full career, remains the rarest expression of what the position can be. But its influence has not disappeared. Every time a center-back carries the ball 30 yards into midfield before playing a key pass, every time a defender arrives in the opposition half to influence an attack, that is Beckenbauer's fingerprint on the modern game. Half a century after he first showed what the position was allowed to become. He did not just play differently, he expanded the definition. And that is every center-back type explained. From the stopper whose oldest instincts still win titles in the right system, to the Beckenbauer type that redefined what a defender was allowed to be. The center-back role contains more variety, more intelligence, and more tactical complexity than most fans ever give it credit for. By the way, I also made a video covering every midfield role explained. Make sure you go and check that one out.